Hello everyone and welcome to the Focus Shift video series. I am your host Jeremy Heiler and today we're going to be talking about design trends for 2023. Let's go. First up is minimal design. Minimal design has really taken over the space in the last few years. We look at things on devices most days. Everyone's looking at their phone, looking at Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. All these devices are really taking over the entire design space. So when we're looking at these things, what do you see? You see images and cramped text. So now we're kind of going the opposite way, right? We're wanting more brevity in that. That means letting the images and text kind of have their own space for one another. So when we're designing for that, we want to make sure that when we're designing our website, we're having that brevity there too. We're kind of taking what has been cramped down into social media spaces and saying, ignore that. Let's let our own stuff breathe in a different space. So with your website, you have full control over that space. So that means adding a little bit more spaces, margin, padding in areas to let things really stick out, such as words, some context on the page. Your images, when you're designing a gallery, maybe you want to add a little bit more padding in between the images so it feels like an actual gallery in real space. You don't have pictures bunched up right once another in a gallery when you go into an art gallery, right? You see them spaced out far between. So you can kind of design with those elements in place when you're designing stuff. So let's kind of design what a gallery could look like when you think about that space. First, we're going to go to our gallery page. We're just going to add some images real quick. Just click on the block. Once you click in there, you'll be able to add anything from your galleries or upload directly in here. I'm just going to select some images. So how about we select these? These are beautiful, a little bit of modern design, some art gallery stuff. And then when we're ready, we hit insert. And right away you have this design element. And when we look at this live, you can see they're kind of flushed up one another. It looks beautiful this way, but we're kind of taking away from the idea of what minimal design can really do. So let's add some padding in there and see how it really livens up the page. We'll go back here. We'll go back to our styling. And let's go bizarre. Let's go real thick and see what that looks like. Right away, you can see that the design elements is completely changed. It's just kind of saying like, look at me a little bit more. Especially when you're looking at images at this large scale. So even if we added, no flushing on here, you can see it's like every image has its own style. It has its own look. It's calling out to me saying, look at me. And that's what we're kind of talking about when we're looking at this type of design space. We want these elements to stick out on their own and live on their own so they can have more brevity in there. So if you're adding any text in between any of this, it's having its own style and own choice to stay in a space. So, it really calls out to itself versus being crammed in there. So if I was going to add some title or text effects, so let me just add some text here. So we're just going to add a little text. We'll just put this in here. You can see what it's going to look like. It's going to kind of feel a little bunched up in there, but we want this to call out to itself. So maybe what we'll do is we'll make this a little bit larger. We'll add it into a heading 2. We'll make the space inside thicker. You can see that right now, this text is sticking out way more than before. This is reasons why we're designing this way, is because there's a minimalist design going into it, a lot of theory based on this, and you can keep designing on this level. Instead of everything feeling crumped in there, like if everything was stuck together like this, it would just feel too cramped. See, everything starts to sit on one another. It's not having any way to breathe on itself, and that's not what we want. We want these things to stick out. We want the words to matter. We want the images to matter. Instead of it being all cramped in there, this is where you can really design those elements how you want to. And you can break it up with some little design element choices if you want to. You can add more space if you need to with some dividers. When you click on the dividers, you could choose in between, the layouts between the space, using the spacers, or you could use lines. So let's just use some space first. Let's add even more space in between all this. You can choose different levels of it. I'm going to go thick again, and then I'm going to copy it. I'm going to place it right below it. So you're going to see there's a huge space now happening. And now look at it. It's calling out to itself now. It's really sticking out there. And then you can start doing a lot of other things. Maybe you've had this element here and now you want to add a divider itself. You can start breaking up page elements this way so it's not just living completely in its own space and then starts to look dull after a while, because that's what we want. We want to make sure this is dynamic enough and looks beautiful enough as well. So you can use dividers in those sense as well. You can use different ones. You can use a long one. Let's see what this does. You can see how it's going to break up the page later down. And that looks good, but maybe you want to do something like a flush design where it's almost like cutting it in half, cutting the page in half to, this is going to be about new information. And you can choose different types of stylings for it, you know, a very thin one. There we go. And see right below that, you can start adding more of that divider space that we created earlier. And then go into more gallery images. It's really up to you on what you want to do design-wise. You just got to think about what the full scope is when you're coming up with this style. Now we can see the difference. Right now we have it set to that. We're going to go to our thick space and let's refresh. You see how it looks so much different here. Now let's go ahead and change that from flushing back to here so they all have a similar design choice. Then we hit refresh and there we go. You can see these pages are now having some brevity to it. It's living on its own, creating its own ecosphere. So when you're designing something, people can come to your website. They're not just going to get overload stimulation. You're going to let each piece have a thoughtful moment to itself. Each word is going to have its own thoughtfulness. So when you're designing that, think about this going further into the future, and this is a design trend that is happening right now, is thinking about space in that way. So how can you utilize space for your own website? The next thing that's happening for design trends for 2023 is actual symmetrical design. And what is symmetrical design? Well, if you've noticed in the last few years, it's been a lot more fluid design happening. And what we mean by fluid design is kind of a sandbox style. Maybe you're used to it with Photoshop, where you can kind of put an element here and kind of drag it wherever you want to. Now, after a while, that looks really neat and all, but it's gotten to where things start to feel a little cluttered and a little mismatched. You know, people have gotten used to seeing things left or right, but then something's hanging over here, something's over there. Now we're getting back to more symmetrical design, and it's kind of like blocks. So it's thinking about things on the left, then the right, left, and then the right. And why we're doing this design? Because it's so much easier to navigate through, and people are so common to it, you know, especially coming from a Western design philosophy. People are so used to looking from left to right for information. And this goes into Webflow as well. People scan a page, they kind of go down a page like this, just like when you're reading a book. Same thing applies to a website. So you got to think about how you're going to drive that message. Are you creating the design that's going left to right, or is it kind of going left, left, right, right, left, right, left? You don't want any of that. This isn't any code for you know, video games or anything like that, right? We want to make sure that it's very easy to get that information distilled out to your customers so they understand exactly what you do and how to navigate through your website the proper way. So let's kind of build something together that's a little symmetrical. We're going to go into our extra page. You can see I've already kind of built something here, but let's see what it looks like live. You can see there's a symmetrical aspect going to it. Let's play with it even more. I'm going to go in here. You can modify the layouts however you want to. Maybe you want to do something with parallax scrolling, which is really cool. You can think about all the different design choices that you have. So maybe I'm going to choose this one. And then we'll make sure the styling is set to flushing. And you can see what it's going to do. It's going to make a very big, large symmetrical design to this. Look how large and beautiful this is. It's so gorgeous. Right away, you get this full picture. Now, imagine us doing this down the entire thing. I'm just going to copy this block. And then I'm going to reverse it. So think about the storytelling that you're trying to do with your website. You want to make anything feel beautiful. You want to tell a story, that natural progression through your website. So I'm just going to change it a little bit. That page flow design that we're talking about. And you can see right in here that we're already getting into a storytelling, but I'm going to make it even more symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the styling. I'm going to add no spacing in between these blocks. Both of them. And the reason why I'm going to do that is going to give it a nice checkerboard pattern. And this is going to add that symmetrical design that we're talking about right in here. And this is what's really nice. So now you have this beautiful design kind of laid out together. And this is where you can start modifying colors and other things like that to be different call to action areas for people to look at. You know, we have this beautiful image here. We have this other beautiful image here. We can change this to a different one. Let's do that real quick. Just going to go to our clipboard. Just gonna select this one, modify it a little bit for our pin board or focal point. And now we're getting into the storytelling that we want to do, right? So now we're getting in the left to the right, left to the right. That's what we're kind of doing. We're telling this symmetrical story, and it's going to go down the page in a very uniform pattern. You can even break it up by adding some line dividers. If you want to add that flush design with that thin line, we're going to add that ultra thin, we're going to make it flush. And you can see there's going to be some really cool ideas happening here. We're going to modify it even more. We're going to take away space inside the block itself for the divider. And you can see, like, it's breaking it up. It's making it very blocky, very symmetrical. This is the design elements that we're seeing that are coming into design trends for 2023, is telling stories this way. So you can see the line patterns. And then you can break up this information with color and things like that. So look at this block, you know, have white on white. Well, maybe we want to add it just kind of being a little off-white. You know, we can make it where it has more of an eggshell color. So we'll go down here just to break up the pattern a little bit. There we go. And you can keep doing this down the page till you get the design choices that you're looking for. Add those call to actions in between there to drive the decisions. People are so used to this format. Left to right, left to right. And you keep doing this, adding that symmetrical design, it just makes it so much easier to read a page at the end of the day. And the nice thing about it is, it goes over to your devices super easy. People are so used to seeing it this way, but when it goes into a mobile, it just kind of goes like this, right? So those blocks that were on the left are now going to be stacked on top of the ones that were on the right. And that's just how it goes. So when you're designing things like that, think about the design position that you want to have on your website and where it can go. And speaking of responsive design, that's the next thing. Responsive design has become more important than ever, as 80% or more people are looking at websites and just everything on devices these days. So we want to make sure that your website is looking beautiful at all chances. So again, what I was talking about with this website earlier, how everything kind of stacks this way, you're going to want to see what it looks like in a mobile form. So when we're looking through the website, look how everything stacks. Is it beautiful? I think so. So our entire platform is designed to be what I like to call magically mobile or responsive design, right? So you want to be sure that you're designing to make sure it looks good once, and then it looks good on all devices. And that's what I really, really love about our builder. You only have to make sure it looks good on desktops, and it'll look good on phone. For the last few years beforehand, there was other platforms out there that were designing for the phone only, and then the desktop wouldn't look as good. It would look like the phone was stretched out. Now, if you're using old website platforms, you might need to think about what the future holds for your phone. Does it even look good on the phone? Maybe you haven't updated your website in a while. It might be worth looking at it. You want to make sure that your website is going to look good on any device as we go further into the future. Next design choice that we've seen happen recently is actually parallax scrolling is coming back stronger than ever before. Last few years, animations have really taken over, but the big thing about animations is they look cool, right? But they are also taxing on page speed and other things like that. So think about when you come to a website and how you have to start swiping just to see something load up on a page. You're having to kind of take this step and then pause. You don't want to have that. You want to make sure that the page has a fluidity when you're going through it on any device. Anything that's going to slow that down typically is animations. Animations are very taxing. They're hidden code in the background that you don't really think about until you're like looking at your website speed for your SEO scores and you're like, why is my website so slow? Well, that code is being generated and it can really bog down the system. You have to think about it. It's calling out to say, hey, do this nice little dance or fade in or scroll up. That is really taxing on websites. Websites haven't gotten as sophisticated yet as they need to when it comes to loading in those animations. They're still working on that. So one type of design element choice that we think is really coming back strong is parallax scrolling. And why is that? It's a simple way to animate on your website without actually using animation. And what do I mean by that? Well, we'll dive in and take a look in a moment. But what it does is it takes an image and fixes it on a plane, and basically it's in the background. And then everything on that website will then scroll, and it kind of adds this dimensionality to it. That's what you're adding to it. You're adding this depth and flavor. And it's like a subtle animation ability that you're adding to your website. This is something that is really coming back, and let's see how you can actually utilize that. Let's add some cool banners that are all parallax scrolling. How about that? We'll just add 3 for now. And we're just gonna add some images from a clipboard. We're just going to select a few. I'm going to add this one here for this one. So now we got this going on. Let's see what this looks like. Let's go ahead and make sure that layout's doing everything we want to. No space below. Scroll animation is set to active. That's what the key feature is, that scroll animation, that parallax scrolling effect. This is what you're going to want to have implemented on your page. Once it's there, you can preview it, and you can see there's like a subtle animation happening, that reveal of a face once you get to a certain space. You can modify the focal points of where it starts and ends at, but you can see there's a subtle animation happening here. And this is where you can really get into really cool ideas. So maybe you want to add one more flavor to it. We'll add one more animation. And you can see it's revealing things as it scrolls. And now, the cool thing about this, especially when you're using parallax effects and stuff, especially if you're using the banners, you can add text on top of that. And that's just going to add that extra layer of depth that we're looking for. So one thing that I like to do is I go in here, add our text. I'm just going to add a little text. And then you can have a subtitle text underneath it. You can have that. And the other cool thing is you can actually have a button integrated on the page itself, which really looks nice too. Then you can link it to wherever you want to. Once you hit those save changes, you can see what the styling looks like. One thing that I personally like to do, and this is just a design thing for me, some of these overlays, I start out with a white wash. Sometimes I can wash out the images, and I know photographers are very important, they like to make sure the images look good. I like to add a darker overlay color. So I go in here, and I just add a dark wash to it, and then you can modify after that how much of the overlay opacity. I'm just going to keep it on 30 for now so you can see what that looks like. So we come here, you can see with the text on top, it's adding this dimensionality to it. And I'm going to add it for all the other ones too so you can see what it looks like. And there you go. You can see how it's modifying things as we go along. And this looks gorgeous. You're adding some dimensionality to it. You're adding the colors, the choices that way. You can keep doing this as long as you want to. And other blocks have these design choices. You can do parallax scrolling with those text plus image blocks that we had earlier. So when we're looking at that, we can add that in here. We can simply just add a little text here. And then we can add title. And then we can add an image. We'll just pick one from our clipboard right here. And then we'll change the styling. We'll go to our layouts. We'll just pick, again, this style. We'll add no space in between, and we want flushing on. And when we're looking at it, you'll be able to see that scroll animation as we go. And there you go. You can see there's a subtlety to it right here. Going in there, there's going to be a little design element happening here. And you can see how this design is coming to life with this look. So this is something that we're looking at when it comes to design for the year. So these are the types of design choices that you could be making right now on your website that's just going to add a little bit more flavor and design elements to it. And it looks really nice without breaking your website speed. And it just looks beautiful at the end of the day. Another big trend that's happening right now in 2023 is earth tones. Earth tones have really started coming back, and I think there's a reason why. I think we've gotten so used to everything having a stark white contrast or darkness. Things have just gotten that way over a few years. I think that minimalist design has really played into that. But I think something else that's happened is we're trying to humanize brands a little bit further than we used to. And I think adding those earth tones, those skin tones back into a website just humanizes it a little bit, adds warmth to a page, and I think it makes it really special and stand out in a different way than it used to. I think back in the day we would think earth tones were something that was a little drab, but now that's coming back with the new sense of design that people are adding to websites, it looks beautiful and gorgeous. So let's take a look at how we can add earth tones into our pages and really amplify our website design. So we're taking a look at our website. We can see what it looks like already. We've added a couple earth tones before. We're kind of getting to these grays and stuff, but we can go even further. So let's just modify a little bit. We're going to go to our colors. You can see the background colors, overlay colors. But if we added more of this tone here, you can see that it just feels a little nicer, right? It's a little bit less drab. It's getting in there, and then you can modify your title colors. Maybe you want them to have that white tone, or maybe they're just a little off gray, or maybe they're following these trends of colors that you got. You can modify them till they get to a nice sensibility that you're looking for. just to really stick out. And then our text color, we want to kind of play into there as well. Maybe it's a little bit darker, just so it's legible. And it gets better. It's, you know, after a while you've seen black and white so much, you know, it's nice to see some color breakup, right? There we go. Now it's got a subtle brown texture to it versus just being stark black. And it looks beautiful. Now compare that to our white and black one up here. You know, it's got very minimalistic look going to it, but it also becomes kind of tiresome. Kind of people get, you know, exhausted looking at so much white on a page. And I think that's one reason why, you know, when we look at paper isn't completely white. You know, when we're looking at novels and stuff like that, there's like an ashier tone to it. So maybe that's what we're looking at. You know, that's what's going through our brains when we're designing these things. Is like, hey, what can we do to make these things more attractive? So maybe if there was like more of these brown tones playing into it, you know, we can mess with these color choices till you get something that you like, you know. So maybe I'm gonna play in this ball field a little bit. And you can see there's different opacities. This one's got a little bit more of a muted chocolate tone to it. This one has more of a red tone to it. Keep messing with these earth tones till you get a desired look that you're going for. But you can see how it plays with one another. These feel more natural, more human to the brand that you're designing. Even looking up there at the top with our top bar, you can modify that to that earth tone and it's gonna look gorgeous at the end of the day. And you can go as far as you want to. I think this is what trends that we're seeing right now, and I think it just breaks up the page a lot more, adding color back to your website versus just pulling it completely out. And that's what I really like about these earth tones. It's just adding a little bit more dimensionality as we go into 2023. Another big design element is less design, but actually a feature. People are looking at adding video content everywhere, not just on social media channels, but to your website. Think about how you can utilize video for your own website at all times. And you know, a still image can say 1,000 words, but what more can video do? Video can really amplify your message, your brand, your overall aesthetic that you're really trying to drive home to people. They want to be able to see what you can offer them, right? At the end of the day. So having any type of video content is really going to have a powerful impact in the long run. Another growing design trend we see right now is actually hero images are coming back in a full screen way. For a while, I think they kind of got away. Now they're coming back. And the reason why they're coming back is it looks awesome seeing an image displayed at the largest resolution possible. You know, we are already looking at these things on a mobile device at all times, but isn't it nice to be able to see something that's on a desktop screen that's just taking over the whole page? That's what we're looking at now, and people are getting back to that because it's a real huge call to action at the end of the day. We'll go over here, we'll just click on our banner block again. Select your banner that you want to. You can upload an image or a clipboard image. I'm just going to select one from our clipboard. Already it's looking cool. So you can go in here, you can make those modifications. And we're going to go to classic full screen. This is that full screen hero image that we're talking about. So when we come right on into the page, you can see it's already taking over. It's massive, right? You can modify the focal point. If you want more of the face in place, you can do that. This is awesome. I love it. This is taking over the entire thing, so I'm already right away getting a fresh, beautiful vision of what type of style of photography you have. And then you can make this a rotating banner if you want to. Don't be afraid to showcase what you want seen right away. So maybe you want to add a couple more images. That's okay. We'll add a couple more images. We'll go through here, we'll select some, and there we go. So now, when we refresh, you'll have the traditional rotation of the banners. It'll go through here, you'll see it, new image will appear. And then give it a few seconds, another image will appear, and there we go. This is giving off a mood, a tone, an expression, an aesthetic that you want people to know about your work, your content that you're trying to fulfill for them. What you can apply to their own business or their own lives, you know, if they're not a business owner. If you're thinking about it for someone's life that you're designing for, remember, this is going to be something that they're going to be able to put on their walls, they're sharing on their social media. So being able to showcase your work in the biggest way possible is them thinking about their own walls. And that's what you need to think about the design element choice. So when we're looking at this, there's other cool things you can do like we've done before. We can add those call to actions in. Remember, you can add a title here. You can add that subtitle. And then you can link that button to where you want them to go. You can modify those colors. And then you can send them wherever you want to with that scroll animation. having a down arrow to tell them that there's more information below, you name it, it's all there. So think about these hero images when you're designing this way. This huge block is taking over. And then, guess what? You can have the next one have no text on it. It could be flushed out, with on image. But you can also have text on all of them that drive them to different locations. Check out a gallery. Check out my investment opportunities. You name it. It's really up to you on what you're wanting to do, driving them into your website. Remember, you're the director at the end of the day. Which direction do you want them to go? So take advantage of the full screen banner options. This is a really cool way to display your images. And something that people don't know that they can do is actually add mobile banner versions of those images that already exist. So, if you're worried about that the image is getting cropped or anything like that, you can own a mobile version, upload a different image, and guess what? It's going to showcase a beautiful new image in a different way. You can upload the same image if you want to, if it's narrow. You can just select it and go from there. But if you want a different image altogether, you can create an entire different experience on your mobile device. You can say different words if you want to. It's really up to you at the end of the day. So what if I add these two images in? I'm going to flip-flop it. I'm going to have some text here. Then we'll have our subtitle. And then we'll have that button back. That way it has a one-to-one experience on that device, just like that. But then our mobile experience will have a different image altogether. And maybe it goes to a different place altogether. Book today. Subtitle. And then a different button. And we're going to link that somewhere else. You can see right here how our home hero page looks. You can see how it has a rotating banner on there, and it's using that narrow scape to design with. It looks beautiful and gorgeous, and compare that to our desktop version, it's a completely different experience overall. So when you're designing for this stuff, you want to make sure this stuff can look good on both desktop and mobile, but take advantage of the tools that are there. For mobile banners, you can use those narrow vertical shots and create their own distinct versions versus the desktop. So when you're designing, you can make it uniquely yours in every way possible. Another trend that we've been seeing lately is lazy loading. And what we mean by lazy loading is actually smart loading. And that is a design element that's been around for a little bit, but people are now catching up to understanding its purpose. It's great for SEO, but it's also great for mobile design. When we mean for mobile design purposes, not every image that you're loading in as a photographer is going to load right away. Because we know photographers, they like to show their photos off. Who wouldn't, right? But the thing is, 100 images now have to load and process on a device right away. With lazy loading or smart loading enabled, you'll be able to have those images ready to be looked at, but the user gets to ask when they want to see them versus just automatically loading in. Let's take a look at how you can create that option on your website. So we have these images here. I'm going to add a couple more. I'm just going to add some in. There we go. Now we have our images loaded in. And you can see right here, there is a load more functionality already popping up. You can go here in our last item link area, and what you want it to do you want it to display any? Otherwise it'll just stop at the 6 based on our layout description that we've asked for. So what if we design this to be a pinboard? We're gonna make this a 3 by 3. You can see all the images will load in that design way however you want to. And you can modify how it looks. Maybe you want to break it up with some horizontal images in there. There we go. Now we got our layout. So when we look at this on a desktop, you can see how it's looking. Now we've made it where it won't load more. But let's go back and say yes. And we add the text where we want to say load more. What that's going to do is, we know there's more images here to be seen. And see, it loaded in those extra ones after the fact very quickly. But if you didn't have that option enabled and you just had tons of images displayed, it can really bog down the phone service. So imagine what you're doing when you're trying to ask someone to take a look at their gallery and they're in the middle of a luncheon and they can't load up anything. Using these types of lazy loading and smart loading options are just going to help your website load on devices very quickly, and it lets the users at the end of the day see what they need to see. They might have already been happy enough with the first images, They don't have to go deeper if they don't want to. So just think about that when you're designing. And the last design trend is actually one that's been around for a while, and that's the design trend of security. We're trying to make sure that your website is secure at all times. Security has become more important over the last few years, especially in the last 5. With the rise of bots, artificial intelligence, and spam in general, we have to protect our website so we can protect our business and ourselves at the end of the day. To enable those features is really simple. Let's take a look. From the website builder, you can just go to the left side and go all the way down to My Account. Over here, you'll see Settings. Here, you'll see Policy Settings, Spam Protection. These are things that you're going to want to enable on your website. So when we're looking at, spam protection, this is adding Google reCAPTCHA to your website. Google reCAPTCHA is that thing that you see on websites where it says, how many lights do you see? How many bicycles are in a photo? This is actually really hard for robots to break, so they can't go any further. So that spam filter stops them right then and there. You'll want to enable this right away. Another feature that you're going to want to add is actually in your domain level, and that is going to be called SSL security. You want to enable SSL security because basically it's telling Google that your website is secure to take encrypted information. And what's encrypted information? Well, that's going to be stuff like payments, documentations, form submissions, you name it. Very vital information that's coming from one user to your platform. We don't store any information such as credit card info. That is all done within the merchants itself. We're just a gateway to get to those platforms. So having that SSL security in place, it assures Google that your website is safe. And Google likes knowing that your website is safe. What it does then is it actually optimizes your site for that search engine results that way. So these are trends that have been around for a while, but a lot of people just don't get it or understand it, or they pay for it when other places give it to you for free, just like PhotoBiz. You can enable SSL right away in your domain section. After your domain is set up, all you have to do is click a button and enable it. It takes about 24 to 72 hours for it to be enabled, but from there, your website will have that nice little lock up here in the corner that everyone likes to know about. When you click here, site information, connection is secure. That's what you're trying to make sure that your website is secure for users and for Google purposes. And that's it for design trends for 2023. There'll be more coming throughout the rest of the year, but these are things that we're seeing right away that people are implementing on their websites, not just for photographers, but for all the web space. What are some trends that you've been seeing? Let us know in the comments what you'd like to see. We'd like to know more in the future what types of content that you're looking for, how we can help and present it for you so you can know how to better use the tools that you have in your platforms. My name is Jeremy Holler, and I want to thank you again for joining us today for the PhotoBiz Focus Shift video series. Like and subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with all the content that we have, and let us know again in the comment section what you're wanting to do. What do you want us to see? What do you want us to build? We can do it all together, and we can do it right here. Thank you. See you next time.